Thank you all for being patient as we had a sort of a scene change here. We'd like to bring us all back together to hear from our next round of VIPs, our actual veterans who've been impacted by this technology. So without further ado, I want to hand the mic over to my friend and colleague, Evan Davis, and we'll get this started.
Awesome, thank you. So we all have mics, so it might be a little bit interesting, just like that, till we get the hang of it here. So thank you all for coming and seeing this talk. I think the most important thing that we can do at VA is provide a platform for veterans to speak their experience and to share their thoughts, their wishes, and their experiences so that we know how to proceed forward, not just for VA, but for healthcare in general. So I'm very honored to have these three individuals up here. I'm bummed we did have another veteran that we wanted here who is doing really amazing work with the Office of Advanced Manufacturing out of Cleveland, doing 3D printing, but also using AR technologies and VR technologies for pre-surgery planning, which is quite incredible. And so he's been traveling around to VSOs with us. So I just want to give that special shout out to that individual. So if you see anything about 3D printing in Cleveland, that is a veteran that is actually doing a lot of that heavy lifting. So veterans are throughout VA, we're everywhere, and it's a very important place for us to be in that care. So with that, I'll let Grace introduce herself, and if you want to say what branch of service, so we'll do introductions so you know who people are, and then we'll get to some of the questions. So Grace?
I'm Grace Esposito. I'm from Connecticut. I used the VA healthcare system there, and I served in the U.S. Navy.
I'm Jeff Chapman. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana, and I was in the United States Army.
I'm Kevin Sojourner, United States Marine Corps, also VA employee.
And I'm Evan. If you don't know me already, I'm with Ann and Caitlin's team. I'm still detailed to them as a recreational therapist. I think there's a special place for rec therapy in here, so you might hear Caitlin and I competing about who's more powerful in this space, nurses or rec therapists. So shameless plug. I'm also a Marine Corps veteran, so the Marines are going to sit together. It'll be pretty fun here. I actually just really quickly want to share some things about these individuals and why they're up here, specifically why we chose them. And so I actually met Grace very recently, and Grace actually reached out to us because she's been in this space for a little while, and she's very informed. And so we had a long conversation because we do have veterans that reach out to us, and so we respond to them, and we try to connect them to their local facility or their local points of contacts. And come to find out that Grace has been in this space and she's a huge advocate. And since our initial conversation, she's actually brought a lot of her healthcare providers into this space as well. And so she's been an advocate from the outside as a veteran. So she comes from that experience, and we're very happy to have her. She's also got a great story, so we want to highlight that. The Jeff Chapman over here, I have actually personally worked with Jeff Chapman for quite a while now. We started with adaptive sports. And Jeff is with the YMCA in Indianapolis, and Jeff and I identified an area of need within the community. And so with the support of the YMCA, and so shameless plugs that VSOs have a place in this space too, Jeff and his facility were actually able to purchase some virtual reality headsets to support a local facility and their implementation of virtual reality, helping that get off the ground, and so showing that the community is also part of this. And then Kevin, who you'll hear us calling each other Phil or Bob or whatever, just a Marine thing. But Kevin has done some phenomenal work with resistant depression treatments and the use of ketamine with virtual reality. And so Kevin has a very unique story as well into VA, and I'm very excited to give these people a stage to talk about their experience. And so one of the first questions, we do have one online, and we're also going to ask that anyway, so we're going to give two perspectives of that. But really, I just want to start with how did you get into immersive technology, and what was the interest in that immersive technology? Kevin.
To make a long story short, I got into immersive technology because I wasn't able to successfully treat my patients in the ketamine clinic. To elaborate on that, we were a brand new clinic, first of its kind within the VA, and our patient population was treatment-resistant depression patients. So patients who had gone through depression for a good portion of their lives, and we weren't successful in treating that depression. Most of our patients had bouts with suicidality. Some of them had attempts of suicide. So making sure that we were able to provide the treatment that was effective for them was number one priority, not only for myself, but for the wonderful doctor that I worked with, Dr. David Prince. So the way it started out, we were in a little tiny room. There was three of us, or myself and three patients, in an open room, and I gave them ketamine. And then they went on a trip and came back, and that was pretty much the extent of the treatment. We didn't know that we should talk to them. We didn't know what we should say to them, other than what they were experiencing with their psychologists and psychiatrists. So as time moved on, very quickly, we identified the need for more engagement with the patients. So we would end up having impromptu conversations before treatments. So the three patients in a chair and myself would just have conversations about, hey, how was your day? How was your week? And basically just trying to create that small community with each other and with myself in the room. That turned into formal group therapy that we would hold every Friday. We saw a lot of good response with that. The patients were feeling community. They were feeling like they were able to break out of their shell and start to have a life again. So we were really excited about those responses. As the clinic grew, so did the troubles, so did the barriers and boundaries that we had to try to overcome. One of the biggest issues that we experienced was our scheduling. We went from seeing 9 patients a day to 16 patients a day without any additional staff, so we were cycling patients. In that fury of getting patients into the treatment and out of the treatment and getting the next one in, we were losing touch with that communication or with that engagement with the patients. And it was obvious in how they responded to the medication. So seeing this, I talked with our psychologists and said, hey, what do we do to fix this? How do we treat this? The first thing that came to my mind, being a vet and being a nerd, is the PTSD Coach app. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. If you're not, get familiar with it. For yourselves, for your friends, for your families. It's an amazing app. So using the PTSD Coach app, I would meditate with the patients prior to treatment. That worked great. We were seeing some really strong responses. The unfortunate thing about that is I didn't have the facilities to do it. I had a waiting room that had 20 chairs in it. It was loud. It was really difficult to meditate with patients. I couldn't get them into the treatment rooms because there was already patients in there. So I started researching online how to engage patients, how to get them in the moment and get them centered so that they were ready for treatment. And I came across an article written by Caitlin that really inspired me and really got me thinking. So I reached out to her on Teams and said, hey, this is what I've got, and I'm really curious on how to move forward with this. So Caitlin started guiding me on the process. I went to the Navy Exchange and I bought an Oculus headset. I went to one of the apps that's available in the App Store and I purchased a subscription to that. And I started giving the headset to the patients and having them meditate through guided meditation with really awesome visuals. And it really brought them in and centered and focused on why they were there. They got rid of the anxiety from the traveling in or the anxiety of the loud, crowded waiting room, and they were able to actually focus on why they were in the treatment. And we started to really, really see awesome results. Now, last year when I spoke about this, I made mention that my numbers weren't as phenomenal as others, but I looked at it more from small gains in mental health rather than and sustainable, rather than huge gains and maybe not sustainable. So we were seeing anywhere from a 10 to 12% decrease on some of the mental health assessment scales that we're using. And then on another one, on the PHQ-9, we saw a 20% decrease. If you're not familiar with the PHQ-9, there's not a lot of room to have an increase without having improvement. So a 20% increase on a PHQ-9 was pretty substantial. After last year's Immersive Summit, I changed positions. I no longer operate that clinic. My job now is a nursing informatics specialist, so really get to capitalize on my nerdiness. And my goal with that is to increase the exposure of immersive technology in our facility and to try to be the resource for not only for my facility, but the other facilities in my vision. So, Evan, to answer your question, that is how I became a person of immersive technology.
Yeah, and to speak a little bit more on what you shared with the data numbers, we actually had an individual the last summit come up to us, and he shared, this whole time I kind of thought this was bogus. But as soon as Kevin presented his numbers with highly resistant individuals to treatment, it validated it. It shared that, hey, while there are individuals that can relate really well, what about the individuals that can't? What about those individuals that it's really hard to work with? And so he was doing that work, and so kind of proves that this is something that can be used in a lot of different settings, a lot of different spaces. And you nurses seem to like a lot of numbers. That seems to be a trend, especially with Caitlin. So Grace, we'll go to you. So same kind of question. How did you get into VR? And kind of share your experience with that. How did that impact you?
I got into VR on my own out of my willingness to understand my own self more of, I have complex service-connected disabilities, and the one issue I deal with on a daily basis is I have low vision, and with immersive technology, it's afforded me an opportunity to see differently off of a memory that I had before I had my injuries of how I used to see normally, like you all do. And for years, there wasn't too many people to really understand what I would be saying. If I put it, coming here to the demo today, I had an opportunity to put on a lot of these different headsets, and it was amazing to me how normal, without any glasses on, to put this on and to be able to see in that reality that it's normal for me how I used to see, because I see, the way I see now is the way you would through anyway. And on the other aspects of it, I have many other areas. I broke my spine, I had a TBI. I had the honor and privilege to be fixed up right here in DC and Maryland. The Navy sent me to Johns Hopkins and the VA, and I had a lot of repairs done. And moving forward, this is 30 years ago or so that this all happened to me. And moving forward, I've needed some, over the years, little tune-ups with this and that and the other And this kind of technology, without having to take any kind of, say, pain medications, or under mental health, or in physical therapy, in occupational therapy. I just finished 7 months of neurobalance therapy. So to me, this is the future, which can help benefit people that get injured presently today, and also the ones from maybe a time over the years moving forward. I can honestly say this is an advance for the future, and I hope more people get on board with supporting it.
And fun little backstory here, actually, we were talking about the godfather of VR over there, Walter Greenleaf, and Grace is actually part of that journey. And so she had used virtual reality and had the experience that Dr. Greenleaf has actually influenced. And so this is kind of a full circle moment where now we get to share that this is an individual who came to it organically. And we're seeing that a lot. I'll speak Thursday about the VSO experience and the veteran engagement and kind of share what that has really done. So Grace, thank you for sharing that, because your voice is extremely important in that. And Jeff, so same kind of question to you. How did you kind of get into VR, and what are the impacts you're seeing from your side?
Yeah, the way into VR was a story old as time. Evan called me up and said, hey, I got something I want to show you. So I said, sure, it sounds good, let's do it. And he brings in a headset and headsets on heads, right? Put the headset on my head, and I was like, okay, well, this is not anything I thought it was going to be. And he said, what do you think? And I said, well, how are we going to be a community partner in this? So that's a big deal for the Y, is to be able to be a community partner, especially with the VA. And I said, what can we do to provide opportunities for you? And like most VA stuff, Evan looked at me and he said, we need space. We don't have enough space to run classes, VR classes. And I said, well, that's one thing the Y has. We have space in spades, so we'd be more than happy to provide space for you. So we opened up a couple of our YMCAs, and Evan said, hey, we'll provide the professional expertise, the rec therapy, or rec therapists, if you guys provide the headsets. I said, we'll buy some headsets. So we purchased 5 headsets, and we put them in 2 different Ys. And that's kind of how we started.
And I think Jeff sells himself short a lot. We're actually in Indianapolis. We have a VA facility within the YMCA. So pretty incredible facility, and Jeff does a tremendous amount of work with building that community and creating that space. And I don't know that I asked you for that. I think you volunteered that. So I'll set that record straight. That was you. So we're very appreciative, and your involvement as a veteran really showcases the investment that veterans give to each other, all 3 of you. So there are a couple questions, and I want to be mindful of time, so we also give you the chance to share some things that you want to. So one of the questions online was about how do you speak to people about VR? You know, we talk about this technology, and some people, they're just not on board, or they're not ready, or maybe they think it's a video game, which is my favorite conversation to have, because I can show you why. But what are specifically, so for Jeff and Grace will be veteran-centric, but for Kevin has a unique interest in this. How do you convince employees? How do you have that conversation with employees around the recommendations for how to look at this use and expand this, since that's what you do now?
Well, that in itself is a great question, and one of the biggest things that, in my opinion, has been a barrier to full-blown success with immersive technology implementation in the hospital system. A lot of what I run into is timing. Either staff don't have the time to put the patient's head in the headset, or they don't have the time to document the response to it, or they don't have the time to go through the training to learn how to put the head in the headset. So a majority of the time, that's what I hear. Another thing, like Evan was talking about, how people perceive it as a video game. Yes, sometimes the apps that you're using look like video games, but there's also building that video game is doing for you. With the rehabs, physical rehab or neurologic rehab, or like you're going to hear later on from Dr. Rees-Weber, the substance abuse rehab. There's always something that the system is building upon, and it's being able to get that message out there and eloquently speak it, which I have a hard time doing sometimes. Being able to speak about it eloquently to where people understand what you're saying, and you're not talking, in tech talk or nerd talk, but you're actually speaking to them in the language that they understand, is pretty paramount to the success of the programs. Now, in my particular situation, I do run into not only frontline staff not having the opportunity or the time to do it, but also getting the leadership engaged. So one of the opportunities that we took a couple of months ago is we invited one of the vendors that I met last year at the Immersive. We had them come to our facility, and we got the nurse leadership and the nurse managers in headsets. And it was really awesome to see the responses. One of the programs that they were using was very tear-jerking and emotionally driven. So to see that response from them was great, because it told me that, yes, they did actually feel what was going on in the headset. It wasn't a game. So maintaining that drive and maintaining that push is, I think, key to the success. Not just taking somebody's no for the final answer.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I've done a lot of convincing to get in headsets, and until you put people in it, it really doesn't do it as much justice. You've got to really experience it, but that perseverance and that creativity, truly to think about how do we advance this for veterans, and we've got to create the community. We've got to collaborate instead of compete, and that's a really important message, I think, as well. Grace, I want to go to you. So what do you tell other veterans about virtual reality? What do you say, or what recommendations for those that might be hesitant?
So that's basically based on how the veteran is with being, if they're open-minded. If I see that they kind of want to ignore or don't have an interest, the first approach I give to them is I slowly go into, don't fear, not to have fear of change. That to me is one of the biggest things that I come across in this process of immersive technology, getting it out into the veteran community. But what I will say is, over the past year that I've been talking about it more and more, I have, between myself doing it and other veterans, like you mentioned the PTSD app, okay? There's several apps now that are available in the veteran community. So I'm starting to notice more of the veteran community are being more open-minded to looking into this, which brings down their level of fear of themselves with maybe something like this. Then again, on the other hand, a veteran that is so open-minded to it that that's where a lot of the support comes in. When you could sit and communicate back and forth with another individual that is on the same page or has the same common interest of what this is all about. I'm very active in my veteran organization. I've been a member of the Disabled American Veterans for 30 years. And one of my goals is to bring this summit back to our new national commander because I have a voice in the organization for the work that I do, and I understand that this is a big piece of bringing in to support stuff like this, advocating for it. We do our organization does testimonials up in front of Congress every year in February. So, you know, those are some of my goals to continue with all of this process.
Yeah, I think in the VA, we understand the veteran-to-veteran communication is powerful, but I don't think we can ever play that down. I don't think we ever give that enough credit, that veteran-to-veteran communication will solve a lot of things, and it is the most powerful thing to convince people, especially veterans, to feel more comfortable in being part of that journey of healthcare. Jeff, so you have a unique perspective. You're a community builder. You're part of that. Why don't you share?
Yeah, so from my perspective, it is a little bit more unique because we hold our virtual reality classes in a community space. So when I take in our headsets and Evan or Andrea or Amanda bring in the headsets, people automatically know what we're getting ready to do. They already know that we're doing virtual reality. And that's civilian population as well, not just the veteran population. So obviously the civilian population sees it and they want to know what's going on, so that sparks a conversation. And then the veterans always see it and they want to know what's going on, so that sparks a conversation. You know, curiosity killed the cat, right? So when people start asking questions, that's a perfect opportunity to say, hey, let me tell you about this. Find the motivation and say, hey, you know what, maybe we need to put you in a headset and see what this feels like. And then you can tell, well, not me, but tell the rec therapist how it feels and give them the feedback. And I think that's the easiest way for me, or has been the easiest way. Evan's right, he read my notes. I do think veterans to veterans have a tendency to, we talk anyways, we share stories that are about 50% true and 50% false. So we talk anyways, so when we do talk, the people ask questions, and then hopefully it's an opportunity to sell the program and get people in the door.
Yeah, I think I often say it's a campfire mentality, and if we can create that for veterans where they feel that they can have that veteran-to-veteran conversation, a lot of things start being shared, a lot of really openness, and we call that kind of the breakthrough moment. You ever want to see a therapist get really excited, is that moment right there when you've broken down the barrier for somebody to feel comfortable, right? So, you know, even though we're in this room, we can go to Yosemite or somewhere like that and really have an honest conversation, or with what Kevin's doing, and really creating a space. And I think that's what all of you three are doing, and Bill in Cleveland as well, as creating an interesting space for folks. So we actually have a lot more time. Jeff is really a man of brevity over here. I'll get him to share a little more. So, for me, seeing the smiles of veterans' faces when they're in virtual reality, seeing the excitement around participating in therapy, right? When is physical therapy actually fun? Almost never. But with VR, we have this really unique ability to do that. So kind of want to speak to that a little bit. You've seen people in VR, you've been in it yourself. So can you share a little bit about what that experience has been like for you? You want to go? You're eager.
Yeah,
let's go.
I'll talk a little bit about
Let's
this
go.
one.
Yeah, so share your experience about what it's been like for you to see VR incorporated.
Yeah, so I get the benefit of watching the rec therapist actually do it. So I usually sit back and sit there and watch the vets and talk to the vets that come in. And interestingly enough, we at the Ortho Indy Foundation YMCA there in Indianapolis, which is also the home of our Veterans Health Indiana clinic as well. Interestingly enough, we have anywhere between 8 to 10 vets that usually consistently come into our class. So it's funny, and I've told Evan this, and he knows because he started it, but it's funny, I still get a kick out of it. I'll go in there, and the class will start, and the average age of the veteran, and I'm not a spring chicken, but the average age of the veteran is usually between 60 to 70 that walks into the class. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, it should be post 9/11 vets. I don't know if it is. Just let me finish my story. So the interesting thing is I'll sit back and a lot of these folks will come in for the first time or their first session, and they'll get the headset on, and all you hear is giggle, 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 he, and they just can't believe what they're seeing. And at that point, then it makes me feel good that I work with veterans. You know, and the interesting thing about, especially I think, you know, and I've been doing veteran services for a while, the interesting thing about Vietnam era vets especially, they feel like they've gotten left out of a lot of things, and they feel like they didn't get a lot of the same things that some of us post 9/11 folks got when we came back from deployments. And I think it's one of those things that's like, oh, you guys are giving us something, and you're giving us an opportunity to do something that we would have never gotten the opportunity to do. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. And to me, that's what gives me joy, and that kind of gives me that kick and that little energy boost, is seeing them get such joy out of it.
From a personal note, I'll start there and then I'll work that into the professional world. So when I purchased my VR set and I put the app on it, I used the app at home first to make sure that it was something that would, you know, be okay with the patients, because I've never taken ketamine, so I don't know how it works, but only based on what the patients tell me after their treatment. So I used that knowledge and would try the VR at home, and it was pretty awesome. And you could feel yourself kind of sink down in the chair and relax, and the tension will leave your body. Your breathing rate slows down, it gets deeper, and everything that you're doing is more intentional at that moment. And I thought that was really cool. So I went from there and I let my kids use it, and I had them do it, and they enjoyed it. You know, there was always the, okay, you can do the roller coaster, but you have to do the meditation first. But they really enjoyed using it as well. So then I knew that we were onto something. And when I took it into the office and I gave it to the first patient, my rollout was very slow because I needed to make sure that I wasn't going to do anything that was bad. There wasn't a whole lot of information on virtual reality, augmented ketamine, or ketamine augmented, I don't know the order of it, but virtual reality and ketamine treatment. There wasn't a whole lot of research on that. So I didn't know how patients were going to respond. So I rolled it out with a patient that I knew already had virtual reality at home, and he was very good at using it and used it quite a bit. So he was my patient zero, and it started to work really well for him. He was the kind of person that would come out of his disassociation rather quickly. So he would have like an hour and a half left to spend, because our patients had to be monitored for 2 hours. So giving him the VR beforehand and then giving it to him after gave him some time to not focus on the outside world. So I learned a pretty valuable lesson with that as well. So once I started rolling it out to more patients, it really seemed like it was the right direction. I made some contacts with the developer of the app that we were using, and we had some conversations. And they told me about the work that they were working on and how they were actually going to send their product, a new design product that they were developing, to a ketamine clinic near me, a civilian ketamine clinic. So that was really inspiring to me as well, because now somebody wants to get that data and that research and really validate what we were doing. So after I left the clinic, we were able to get some other equipment that we're rolling out. There's been a delay, unfortunately. The clinic had to be restructured after I left. So the restructuring is complete, and now we're moving back into full steam ahead with the VR. So we did have some hang-ups and hiccups, but I think we're overcoming that, and there's definitely some engagement by the people that are on the front line for that.
Yeah, and I like your journey too, right? You've you started there, and now this is your kind of secondary mission, other than treating veterans, is pushing this technology, and so it's really kind of shaped your career even. Grace, so how has VR impacted you as a veteran and as a user of this technology? Of course. So as a veteran and as a user of this technology, how has this impacted you?
I'm just a little overwhelmed, excuse me. Being here today and going into the demo area seeing some of this stuff for the first, experiencing some of these headsets for the first time. Words can't explain what just the impact it had on me personally. And I haven't participated yet with the VA with this technology, but I've been doing it on my own at home. And creative arts in many, many different areas of all of this. And my goals are, when I leave here, well, actually before I came here, when I knew I was honored to be on the panel here, I immediately talked to my team. I have my team at the Connecticut campus, and they all got on board, from physiatry to psychology, neurology, BRS, the TBI clinic, like just all of it, because I'm involved in all of those areas. And when I mentioned it a year or two ago, there was kind of like very low responses. But now, I was so, the last couple of months of how quickly the providers in all those areas have shown a high interest and got behind the invite that I got to come here and the participation. They also sent Caitlin, recreation therapist from the VA Connecticut, here with me to participate in this. And she came with me for two reasons. A travel person, and also my goal was for her to be able to have the opportunity to be. She participated in this summit a year ago, virtually. So now she's here in person. So it's like teamwork of me as a veteran, her as a person that does what she does, what we can bring back to Connecticut to get this going even more.
Yeah, very often, Grace, I tell veterans that your voice is much more powerful than mine as a veteran. And so while I work at VA and I am a veteran, you are, all three of you, you are who we serve. And so when your voice is there, the voice of the veteran is the most powerful in that room. So thank you for doing that as well. So we've actually got some time, and so I'm going to combine a couple questions here because I really want to provide the space for you to kind of share your message. So you can kind of go and fire at will here, whoever wants to go. But there are two questions that we kind of had generated, and it's how would you like to see this grow? But then also, if anything you say up here could affect how VA looks at virtual reality or extended reality, immersive tech, what would you say? And so I think those are two in the same question. For the folks online, for the folks out here, for the folks at VA, what do you want them to know? And what's your message as a veteran? There you go, Jeff.
I'll go. Now I'm talking left and right here. So I think for Evan and I have had this conversation. I really believe for maybe the virtual reality, the immersive aspect to grow, I think you have to think about community partners and being able to get it out into the community. And obviously I come from the community side, but I also work pretty closely with the VA side. And I know sometimes we get siloed in what we do and we forget about somebody else and we forget what's going on over here. The great thing about the community is they're in the community. They usually have access to people and they usually have access to partners in the community. And Evan and I have talked about this, and I fully believe that this is an opportunity to get it out into the community, to get it out into your community partners' hands and let them kind of flourish with it like we have at the Y, just simply because it's an incredible opportunity. And going back to that, and I'll still try to keep it short, the interesting thing about our YMCA is a fairly large YMCA. It's Greater of Indianapolis. We're about the 13th largest association in the United States. So we have a pretty big reach. We have about 144,000 members. And it's shocking to me how many members know about our virtual reality program. I'll go out and do a presentation, or I'll go out and talk to someone, and somebody will pull me aside, hey, tell me about that virtual reality program you guys are doing at Ben Harrison with the domiciliary folks. And then I have to go down the rabbit hole with them. And then they're like, this is amazing. I didn't even know there was such a thing as that. So you get your community excited, and obviously our veterans are going to get on board because the community leads, right? That's what happens. Veterans are part of the community, and then all of a sudden they jump on board and everybody's excited about it. So I think for future growth, you really have to look at community partnerships.
And as a veteran, what's your message?
Yeah, as a veteran, I think the big thing to me is just to keep doing what you guys are doing. I was blown away by Dr. Greenleaf this morning. It was incredible. I was blown away by the presentations that were done. I personally just think that's full speed ahead. I'm all in. Evan knows I'm all in. I bought into the program from day one, so I just think full speed ahead. Keep doing what you're doing, and keep obviously trying to reach as many veterans as possible and bring them into the good side, right?
Grace? Sure. There are two questions within this. So how would you like to see VR grow? And with that, what's that message you would like to deliver to folks online, folks here, folks at large? What's your message about virtual reality?
Oh, I'm sorry. I would like to see it grow more message wording, getting out into, let's say, service organizations out in the communities, you know, it begins with like on chapter levels, state levels, and could end on a national level. And by advocating this, I belong to multiple service organizations. I'm very active though in the one, but getting this information out there, veteran organizations could very well, you know, like Jeff with the YMCA as an outside entity, I feel veteran organizations could play a role in this as well. And I got lost, I'm sorry.
That's okay. As a veteran, what do you want to say about VR to folks?
Oh, give it a try. I mean, you have nothing to lose. You only have to gain. You know, I will admit, myself, you know, several years ago, I was one that was closed-minded. You know, let's go back to, you know, when COVID happened and we were all home and you couldn't go to your appointments, you couldn't go to see the psychologist, or you couldn't do anything when we were all home. And when VVC was first, when VVC started coming around and WebEx started coming around, that was the key moment for me, which followed, a whole bunch of veterans followed behind me with, there was it was a transformation that if you wanted, the VA did its best to keep up with healthcare and providing for the veteran community. So when that transformation started going around and on, I recollect my experience with that was, well, there was different segments of veterans that didn't know how to use the technology. Then there were those that were willing and learn, and then there were those that it was easy for them. So I kind of fell in the piece of all I have to do is just see what's going on and do it. So once I did, and it was not difficult, it was not complicated at all. I was able to communicate to those that the older generation of the Vietnam veterans and Korean time veterans I'm talking about, that didn't have that technology experience whatsoever, even on a computer. I was able to assist and help many of them in Connecticut, from getting iPads donated to just showing them and getting the clinicians on board. It was like a whole working process and progress of converting over. And then one more thing I want to add to that was, before COVID, the Department of Veterans Affairs was trying to bring in this technology slowly, and I noticed it was very difficult. But when COVID happened, not that anybody wanted that to happen, but it's a fact that it did, what I'm happy about is that that push came. And there was, well, people have a choice. Either you're going to participate in VVC or WebEx, or you're not. So the push came. And from the data I have seen and the surveys I participate in, a large percentage now has been transformed over into the VA healthcare system with VVC and WebEx teams and all this. But this here is the next, I don't want to say next, it is, to me, the future. And you know, I'm a couple of decades, speaking of that headset that you saw before from 1987 with Walter, I talked to him after he was finished, and going back from that time, part of my duty in Fort Meade, using my intuition and testing on that, and to where it's at now, like, I would really like to see this fully continue. And I know when I go back to Connecticut, what I'm going to get busy with, keeping up with all of the providers and the team, and support Caitlin as much as I can to get Connecticut more involved.
I think you need to come work in VA. Stay out of Grace's way. She's making things happen. Thank you, Grace. And Kevin, you've got quite a bit of time here, man. Here's your soapbox.
10 minutes and 26 seconds. Let's see if we can do it. Where I would like to see immersive technology go in the VA. So I'm going to speak from a more local perspective, being that I work in the facility. I have a belief that immersive technology has a place in every department of our facility, regardless of that department, whether it's nursing or social work or environmental services. It doesn't matter. There's a role for immersive technology in every department, whether it's employee wellness rooms, or it's empathy teaching, or it's learning how to do, to respond to a sudden code on the floor outside the elevators. Everybody has an impact on every veteran that walks through the door, and if we have the technology to learn from an employee's perspective, then we should leverage that technology and we should use it to learn. From a veteran's perspective, I would hope that everybody took every opportunity to learn to make my care better. So I believe firmly that there is a role for immersive tech in every single part of our system. What I would want to tell veterans,
Tell the world.
tell the world. So heads in the headsets, I'm going to add on to that.
I didn't pay for that statement.
That's all right. Hashtag ask for it. Ask for the tech. Tell your providers you know it's there, you want to use it. I want virtual reality. You're going to be like, what? It's there, ask for it. Get a hold of anybody in this room, they'll be able to tell you about it. But ask for the tech. Ask for the treatment or the therapies or the entertainment or the distraction. One of the things that I'm working on in our facility is incorporating it into our geropsych unit. So patients who have cognitive deficits, whether organic or inorganic, giving them the headsets in the later afternoon when the sundowning time starts. Let them get distracted. Let them go travel to some other place. Let them not be, in the same room for however long they're in there, in the same chair, watching Price is Right. Let them get out and travel. So the tech is there. We just need to use it. We need to be advocates for it. We need to push hard for it. So from a veteran and from an employee, that's my goal and my mission.
Well, I'm on board, but we're Marines, so we knew that. So we've got quite a bit of time. Any last things, anything we didn't cover, anything you want to say? Let's go, Grace.
Earlier, there was a gentleman in the back. I don't recollect who he was, but I want to just add to the conversation went, well, what if a veteran gets addicted to this here type of technology? And a person can only get addicted to something if they choose to. So that's why it's important for the veteran and the staff, the veteran and the clinician, for the veteran to be introduced to it and be informed, because everybody makes choices with something like this, and then for the sector of society that says, why are you bringing this in? Are you trying to cut off, being in person to do something? To me, I don't see it that way at all. I see it as such an advancement for those that can't come out, for those that are, let's say, the Korean veterans, the Vietnam veterans, that can get an experience to bring them back into time or travel, to just the travel piece alone, because what it does is it will open up their memory of what they once experienced before. And that is exactly what I experienced in that demo room of experience of how I used to see and what I saw through that. So there's no question in my mind that this here, I just want to reinforce the support for this to go on in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, we got time.
So to piggyback on what Grace was saying, and also what Dr. Lieberman was saying earlier, in our world, and in not just the VA world, but in the medical world, there's a global shortage of people who do what we do. It's not a question, it's not a hypothesis, it's a fact. There's a global shortage. So one of the things that we consider when I was saying earlier about there being an opportunity for this in every environment, let's take a look at physical therapy, right? I'm looking at you, even though I know you're recreational therapy, Ryan.
Call me Ryan.
So let's look at physical therapy on a CLC unit. The physical therapist can typically work with one patient at a time. There's 25 patients on the unit, so that means that maybe 5 or 6 patients get worked with each day. Or we put the patients in headsets and have the physical therapist work with 4 patients at a time, and we can get through the entire unit in a day. So we're closing that gap on access. We're closing that gap on having employees and staff be able to perform the jobs, and we're providing better care. We're providing more thorough care, all for a little bit of technology. And we're not trying to hide behind a screen. We're trying to be that front person. We're trying to be there for all those patients and give them the care that they deserve. Whereas the global shortage is preventing us from doing that. So let's augment that shortage with technology.
I don't have anything else. No, thank you, 3, for being up here. You are huge advocates, and I think that's the big message, right? Let's be advocates about this technology. Let's have that conversation. We can add a hashtag. Let's do it. So hashtag ask for it. So for those of you online, there's quite a few providers across the country, individuals, and so it really takes a community to change some things and share this. And even from last year, we were here last year, and it's grown exponentially. And I had a conversation with Caitlin last night about, I didn't see the giant picture of what this was. I'm not Walter Greenleaf. I haven't been doing this for 30 years. But we have an opportunity to really leverage this immersive technology to improve the way that we deliver care for veterans. And if there's any testimony that we hear from, it's the veterans that want more. It's the veterans that are saying they enjoy this, they've experienced it, they've got benefits. So it's time we start listening. So thank you, 3.
Thank you.
Thank you.